Welcome, miladies of inestimable value. The scariest people are the ones who say nothing, watch everything, and move in silence. Ever noticed how some people can walk into a room and instantly shift the energy without even saying a word? That's the Sigma female effect. She doesn't have to be loud, aggressive, or attention-seeking to make her presence felt. In fact, the very reason she's so intimidating is because she doesn't do what everyone else does. Here's a fact. Studies show that unpredictable behavior makes people uneasy because the human brain craves patterns. Now, imagine a woman who doesn't play by social rules, doesn't care about approval, and doesn't explain herself. That's not just unpredictable, that's downright terrifying to those who rely on herd mentality. It's no surprise that Sigma females make people nervous, not because they try to, but because their mere existence exposes just how fragile and performative most people really are. And if you've ever wondered why they have this effect, keep watching, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you see power, confidence, and human behavior forever. Number one, they know their worth, so flattery is useless. Most people have a weakness for sweet words, compliments, flattery, carefully crafted lines. They work like magic on the average person because deep down everyone craves validation. But a Sigma female, she's immune. It's not that she doesn't appreciate a good compliment, it's that she doesn't need one to feel valuable. And that right there makes her dangerous in a world where flattery is a tool of persuasion, manipulation, and control. People aren't used to someone who sees right through the game. Most interactions are layered with hidden intentions, whether it's someone trying to impress, sell, seduce, or gain favor. A Sigma female recognizes this instantly. She's not moved by exaggerated praise, empty admiration, or words designed to put her on a pedestal. She knows her worth, and because of that, she doesn't get high off someone else's opinion of her. This unsettles people, especially those who rely on charm as their main weapon. What makes it even more frustrating is that she doesn't reject compliments. She just doesn't attach any significance to them. She might say a polite thank you and keep it moving, but there's no spark in her eyes, no ego boost, no shift in her attitude. And that's when reality hits. The usual tricks don't work on her. Compliments don't get her to lower her guard, and flattery doesn't make her easier to influence. She's an unsolvable equation in a world where people expect predictable reactions. This is where frustration turns into intimidation. People who are used to getting what they want through charm suddenly feel powerless. They're used to their words having an effect, and when they don't, it exposes their lack of real power. And the best part? A Sigma female doesn't have to do anything to make them feel this way. Her self-awareness alone is enough to make those who rely on flattery feel like they've lost their sharpest weapon. And nothing is more terrifying than realizing you have no influence over someone who refuses to be impressed. Number two, they move on without closure, which destroys egos. Most people need closure like they need air. They want explanations, apologies, one last conversation to make sense of everything. But a Sigma female? She doesn't owe anyone a neatly wrapped ending. When she's done, she's done. No long speeches, no emotional breakdowns, no giving people a final moment to plead their case. And that right there, it shatters egos. People expect reactions when relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, come to an end. They expect anger, tears, or at least a discussion that lets them feel important one last time. But when a Sigma female simply walks away, it sends a brutal message. You are no longer worth my time or energy. That kind of silence is deafening. It forces people to sit alone with their thoughts, overanalyzing what went wrong, desperately searching for answers they will never get. And the truth is, she's not being cruel. She just refuses to waste time on people or situations that have already proven themselves unworthy. She doesn't need a grand confrontation to validate her decision. She doesn't care about who gets the last word. She doesn't stick around to explain herself to people who didn't value her when they had her. She moves forward without guilt, without looking back, without giving anyone the satisfaction of closure. For those on the receiving end, this is maddening. They don't get the emotional reaction they were hoping for. They don't get to feel powerful or in control of the ending. They're left with unfinished business that will never be resolved. And for some, that's worse than an outright fight. because now they're stuck questioning themselves, doubting their own importance, wondering if they ever mattered in the first place. And that's the Sigma female's silent revenge. Not by design, not out of spite, but simply because she understands one brutal truth. The best way to show someone they're irrelevant is to move on like they never existed. Number 3. They never seek permission, making others feel powerless. Most people are conditioned to seek approval before making a move. They ask for opinions, second-guess themselves, and wait for permission, whether from friends, family, or society. It's not just about guidance, it's about reassurance. They need to feel like their choices are socially validated before they act. A Sigma female, on the other hand, skips all of that. She doesn't ask, she decides. And that kind of autonomy is unsettling because it forces people to realize just how much control they've willingly surrendered. People who constantly seek permission find comfort in the idea that everyone is following the same unspoken rules. But a Sigma female, she proves that those rules are optional. She doesn't need confirmation to move forward, and that alone is enough to shake people to their core. It's not arrogance, it's self-trust. While others hesitate, overthink, or wait for the right moment, she moves with quiet certainty, making choices on her terms. This level of independence is intimidating because it exposes a brutal truth. Most people aren't truly in control of their own lives. They depend on approval to feel secure in their decisions, but when they see someone operate without that need, it triggers discomfort. It makes them question why they've been so afraid to act without external validation. And that realization, it stings. What's worse is that they can't control her. They can't manipulate her with guilt, social pressure, or the fear of rejection. She's already made peace with standing alone if necessary. This makes people feel powerless, not because she's intentionally trying to overpower them, but because she exists as proof that true independence is possible. And nothing is more unsettling than realizing the only thing stopping you from moving freely is your own hesitation. Number 4, they're too real for a world built on fakeness. Most people don't even realize how much of their daily interactions are scripted. Fake smiles, forced small talk, exaggerated enthusiasm, it's all part of the unspoken social contract. You pretend to care, they pretend to believe you, and everyone goes home feeling like they did their part. But a Sigma female? She refuses to play along. She doesn't fake emotions she doesn't feel, doesn't laugh at jokes that aren't funny, and doesn't sugarcoat the truth just to make others comfortable. And that level of raw authenticity, it's unsettling because it exposes just how artificial most people really are. Society thrives on polite dishonesty. People compliment outfits they secretly hate, agree with opinions they don't respect, and act interested in conversations they'd rather escape. It's all about keeping the peace, maintaining appearances, and avoiding discomfort. But when a Sigma female enters the room, she disrupts the illusion. She doesn't engage in forced pleasantries or play along with the act. She responds with brutal honesty, a lack of unnecessary fluff, and an energy that says, "I don't have time for nonsense." And that's where the intimidation begins. People who rely on fake social niceties don't know how to handle someone who refuses to play the game. They expect certain reactions: smiling agreement, easy compliance, a predictable dance of social approval. But with a Sigma female, they get something completely different. They get directness, independence, and a presence that isn't shaped by the need to be liked. And that's terrifying. What's worse is that her authenticity forces people to confront their own inauthenticity. Being around her makes them question how much of their personality is real and how much is just a well-rehearsed act. It makes them realize how often they hide behind politeness instead of speaking their truth. And that kind of self-awareness, it's uncomfortable. So instead of facing it, they label her as too intense, too blunt, or too much to handle. But deep down, it's not that she's too much. It's that she's real in a way most people are too afraid to be. Number 5. They never explain themselves, which confuses weak minds. Most people are conditioned to explain themselves. Whether it's a decision, an opinion, or even a simple change in behavior, they feel the need to justify why they did what they did. It's not always intentional, it's just the way society works. People are expected to provide explanations, to soften the impact of their choices, to make others understand so they feel comfortable. But a Sigma female? She doesn't play that game. She moves how she wants, when she wants, without a single unnecessary word. And that, it drives people crazy. When she walks away from a relationship, she doesn't write a novel about why. When she changes direction in life, she doesn't hold a press conference to make sure everyone is on board. When she says no, she doesn't feel obligated to provide a 5-paragraph essay explaining why. She simply decides, and that's the end of it. Most people don't know how to handle that level of autonomy because they're so used to individuals over-explaining themselves out of guilt, social pressure, or a need for approval. But when they don't get that from her, it leaves them confused, frustrated, and, in many cases, powerless. People rely on explanations to feel in control. When someone explains their choices, it gives others a chance to respond, debate, or even manipulate the situation. But when a Sigma female refuses to do that, it strips them of that power. They're left wondering why she did what she did, replaying conversations in their heads, searching for clues that don't exist. And the worst part? She doesn't care if they understand or not. That's the real reason it's so intimidating, because her silence forces people to sit with their own discomfort. And there's nothing more unsettling than realizing that someone doesn't need your validation to move forward. Number 6. They don't seek approval, which threatens fragile egos. Most people are addicted to approval, even if they don't admit it. They chase likes, compliments, and validation like their self-worth depends on it. Because, in many cases, it does. Society is built on the need for social confirmation, from the way people dress to the decisions they make. But a Sigma female? She couldn't care less. She moves without permission, makes choices without needing applause, and that alone disturbs people who can't function without external approval. It's not that she's trying to be rebellious or difficult. She simply doesn't see the point in seeking permission for how she lives her life. She doesn't ask if her choices make sense to others, if her opinions are popular, or if her lifestyle fits into society's expectations. She decides, and that's it. And that level of self-sufficiency, it's threatening. Because when someone doesn't play the approval game, it forces others to realize just how much of their identity is built on being liked. People who crave approval don't just want validation, they need it to function. It reassures them that they're on the right path, that they belong, that they're doing things correctly. So when they see a Sigma female operate without that need, it shakes them to their core. It makes them question their own dependence on social confirmation, and most people don't like what they find. Instead of facing that discomfort, they project it onto her, labeling her as arrogant, difficult, or too independent. But deep down, the truth is simple. They're intimidated because she exposes a weakness they don't want to acknowledge. A Sigma female's detachment from approval doesn't make her cold or unfeeling. It makes her free. And nothing makes people more uncomfortable than watching someone live without the insecurities they secretly battle every single day. Number 7. They make charmers and smooth talkers feel useless. Smooth talkers and charmers thrive on one thing: the ability to manipulate emotions with words. They know exactly what to say to make people feel special, understood, or even indebted to them. Their whole persona is built on persuasion, whether it's a player trying to win over a love interest, a co-worker maneuvering their way up the ladder, or a salesman trying to close a deal. But when they meet a Sigma female, all of that collapses. She sees through them instantly, and worse, she's immune to their tricks. She doesn't fall for the well-rehearsed compliments, the exaggerated enthusiasm, or the calculated flattery. She knows when someone is being genuine and when they're just performing, and she has zero patience for the latter. The moment someone tries to butter her up with empty words, she shuts it down, not with rudeness, but with something even more brutal: indifference. And that? It terrifies charmers because they need people to respond to their tactics. Their entire power lies in their ability to sway emotions, and when they find someone who doesn't react, they feel completely useless. What's worse is that she doesn't call them out. She just doesn't engage. That silence, that lack of interest, that unshakable energy, that's what destroys them. They're used to people eating up their words, giving them attention, playing into their act. But when their charm bounces off a Sigma female like a cheap trick, they panic. They try harder, push more, maybe even get frustrated, but nothing works. She's already seen through them, and once that happens, they're finished. This is why certain people find her intimidating. Not because she's rude or difficult, but because she makes them feel their own emptiness. A charmer without charm is just a person with no real substance, and that's a truth most of them aren't ready to face. Number 8. They don't seek revenge, yet their silence punishes people. Most people assume that when they betray, insult, or disrespect someone, there will be a dramatic fallout, yelling, arguments, maybe even some form of revenge. That reaction gives them a sense of control because it proves they had an impact. But when a Sigma female is wronged, she doesn't fight, she doesn't scream, and she definitely doesn't plot revenge. She simply disappears. And that silence? It's more devastating than any act of retaliation could ever be. People crave reactions because it validates their significance. If someone lashes out at them, it confirms that they mattered, that they had power, that their actions left a mark. But when a Sigma female removes herself without a word, it sends a different message. You were never important enough to keep around. That realization is brutal. It forces people to sit with their own actions, to replay what happened without the distraction of a heated exchange. They're left alone with their guilt, regret, or worst of all, the knowledge that she moved on effortlessly while they're still stuck thinking about her. She doesn't seek revenge because she doesn't need to. Revenge is for people who still care, who still have emotions invested in the situation. A Sigma female, she's already emotionally detached by the time she walks away. And that's what makes it so painful for those on the receiving end. There's no closure, no chance to argue, no opportunity to manipulate the narrative. Just silence. And that silence is deafening. Some might try to provoke a reaction just to break the quiet, sending messages, creating drama, trying to drag her back into the game. But it never works. She's already closed the chapter, and nothing is more punishing than realizing that someone you once had access to is now untouchable. That's the ultimate power move. Not revenge, not retaliation, just an unshakable indifference that makes people realize they never had control over her to begin with. Number 9. They don't tolerate weak excuses, making others feel exposed. Most people survive on excuses. They blame circumstances, bad luck, or other people for their failures, using whatever justification they can to avoid taking responsibility. And most of the time, society enables this behavior, nodding along, offering sympathy, and letting people off the hook. But a Sigma female, she doesn't buy into that nonsense. She doesn't care about why something couldn't be done, only whether it was done. And that attitude, it's a nightmare for those who rely on excuses to shield themselves from accountability. She sees right through the "I didn't have time" excuse because she knows people make time for what truly matters. She doesn't entertain the "I had no choice" argument because in her world, there's always a choice. It's just a matter of whether someone had the courage to make it. And when someone blames others for their own failures, she doesn't offer a sympathetic nod. She simply raises an eyebrow, silently challenging them to own up to their part in the mess. This level of directness makes people uncomfortable because it leaves them exposed. Excuses are a comfort zone, a way to avoid the harsh truth that maybe they just didn't try hard enough, maybe they made the wrong call, or maybe they simply weren't as committed as they claimed to be. But a Sigma female doesn't allow that self-deception to continue. She forces people to look at themselves without the safety net of justifications. And for those who aren't ready to face reality, that can be terrifying. Some will label her as harsh or unreasonable, but deep down, they know she's right. And that's what stings the most. She isn't being cruel, she's just refusing to lower her standards to make others comfortable. Because in her world, success, integrity, and personal growth don't come from excuses, they come from action. And if someone isn't willing to step up, she has no interest in sticking around to hear why. Number 10. They expose performative confidence as fake. Most people think confidence is about being the loudest voice in the room, flaunting achievements, or constantly reminding others of their worth. They mistake arrogance for self-assurance, believing that if they act confident enough, people will buy into the illusion. And often, it works until they meet a Sigma female, because she doesn't perform confidence. She is confident. And that effortless self-assurance exposes every fake, exaggerated display of confidence for what it truly is: insecurity in disguise. She doesn't feel the need to dominate conversations, prove her intelligence, or make grand statements about her abilities. She simply exists in a state of quiet certainty. She trusts herself, she knows her worth, and most importantly, she has nothing to prove. That energy alone is enough to make people who rely on performative confidence feel completely outmatched. When someone's confidence is genuine, they don't seek validation. They don't constantly try to convince others of their greatness. And that's where the intimidation factor comes in. A Sigma female's presence makes it painfully obvious who is truly self-assured and who is just putting on a show. The moment a fake confident person meets her, they start overcompensating, talking more, bragging harder, or trying to outshine her. But nothing they do works, because no matter how loud they get, her quiet confidence is louder. What's even worse for them is that she never calls them out directly. She doesn't need to. The contrast is enough. Next to her, their forced bravado looks desperate. Their over-the-top confidence suddenly seems try-hard. And deep down, they know it. That realization alone shakes them to the core, because it exposes the truth they've been trying to hide, not just from others, but from themselves. And there's nothing more terrifying than realizing your carefully crafted persona crumbles in front of someone who doesn't even have to try. Power is rarely loud. True dominance isn't about control, it's about presence. And that's exactly why Sigma females intimidate people without even trying. They don't seek approval, yet they command respect. They don't chase validation, yet their absence is felt. They don't explain themselves, yet their actions speak louder than words. Everything about them disrupts the social script, forcing people to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. Most people navigate life through a series of unspoken expectations, seeking permission, following norms, relying on social games to feel important. But a Sigma female? She doesn't play by those rules. She operates on her own frequency, detached from the need to be liked, understood, or controlled. And that's what truly terrifies people, because deep down they realize they've spent their lives conforming, while she moves through the world completely free. It's not arrogance, it's not coldness, and it's definitely not an act. It's simply who she is. A presence that can't be contained, a force that can't be controlled, and a reminder that true power doesn't beg for attention, it just exists. And that existence alone, it's enough to shake people to their core. If this hit home for you, then you already know the power of the Sigma mindset. And if you want more content that challenges the norm, shakes things up, and keeps it brutally real, then do yourself a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Don't just watch, engage. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and let's keep this conversation going. Oh, and if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it their way, because the truth, it only intimidates those who aren't ready for it. Are you? Thanks for watching, my ladies. See you in the next video. Bye for now, and God bless.